For more than 150 years, Trinity University has celebrated human inquiry. Our innovative curriculum is rooted in a distinctive blend of the liberal arts and sciences. Students and faculty hone creative curiosity by answering questions and questioning answers. In a supportive, interdisciplinary environment, they seek ways to build bridges and make connections. And with intentional meaning and purpose, they are driven by a sense of duty to themselves and to the world. Add in opportunities for undergraduate research, experiential learning, and nationally recognized pre-professional programs in business, communication, healthcare, education, and entrepreneurship, you get the full Trinity experience. The liberal arts plus. And while this experience may end with a Trinity degree, it's just the beginning of a lifetime of inspired exploration and perpetual discovery.
Good afternoon, Tiger fans. It was a beautiful Friday night for Tiger fans everywhere watching Joseph Shavana throw a complete game shutout. And so we had so much fun that we are back out here on Saturday for 2 against St. Thomas. So the St. Thomas Celts visiting the Trinity University Tigers. I'm Brian Yanselson back on the call with Luke Terry.
Yeah, Brian, and you mentioned Joseph Shavana's name early on in this one, and it's deservingly so. He has been incredible across his last 2 starts, 16 innings pitched, and just 4 hits given up. It would be understandable if he had 4 runs given up in that span. I think we'd still be applauding him, but he's been incredibly dominant. He's been in total control of his pitches last weekend in a doubleheader on Saturday. He started game 1, and we saw the pitching carry over for the rest of this staff. That's something that I think a real emphasis is going to need to be placed on here in this one for the Tigers to close out this series against a team that came into the weekend in the 3rd place position in the standings in the SCAC, trying to fight for a final play-in berth for that postseason tournament.
Definitely, you know the Celts are not going to go down quietly. They're going to want to come out today and make some noise, and this is a lineup that will try to do it. Leading off in center field, Israel Fields. Batting second in right field, Cameron McClure. Batting third, the catcher, Tristan Pitkin. At DH, a little bit up in the lineup now, batting fourth, Jacob Carrier. Batting fifth in left field, Dylan Lamb. Batting sixth, the first baseman, Leo Galvan. Batting seventh at third base, Lance Kahn. Batting eighth at second base, Noah Martinez. And batting ninth, the shortstop, Jason Brown. So a very similar lineup for the Celts, a couple of changes and shifting around. But for the most part, the same look. And they'll have a different look on the mound because the Trinity Tigers are going with Cade McGann, who will get his first start of the year at home. It will be his 3rd start of the season overall. And so Cade will get the opportunity to keep the ball rolling. And it's been Joseph Shavana and Sammy Conti the last few weekends that have really set the bar for starting pitchers. And we'll get to see if Cade can keep that going.
Yeah, and Cade has been really, really impressive in the limited work that we've seen him in this season. You see on your screen there that he's only thrown in 13 innings for the Tigers this season, but those 14 Ks is a really, really nice mark, especially when you compare him next to those 6 walks. So a really nice ratio right there. I think we'd expect him to be really, really solid in this one. He's had some deep appearances in his last couple of starts, but he has been hit. He has given up some runs. I think the important thing is kind of carrying over from last night, the fact that this bullpen is going to be fresh. It wasn't used at all in game 1 of the series. So if McGann gets into some trouble, I think we can be confident in the guys coming out of the bullpen here today.
First pitch from McGann is fouled back by Fields, and we're officially underway in San Antonio. Just another picture-perfect day. We've been so lucky. After the first couple of games against Babson were cold and rainy, we haven't looked back at that since. It's been beautiful spring weather in San Antonio.
Yeah, and aside from maybe a game last weekend, or I guess that doubleheader was played in some more humid conditions, outside of that, it's been drier than usual here in San Antonio. Perfect conditions all around the field, especially for these pitchers. We'd seen that humidity and the moisture kind of come into play, but more recently, things have been perfect up there on the bump.
McGann falls behind here, 3-1 to Fields. Fields was not in the game yesterday, so a new name atop the Celts order. And he looks at a strike on the inside part of the plate. The count full on this first batter for St. Thomas.
And always so important to come after the leadoff hitter. Tough that McGann fell behind in this count 3-1. Something that we talked about in the broadcast last night that Joseph Shavana did so well was get ahead early on in counts. He had so many in that 0-1, 0-2, 1-2 count.
Fields puts this one into play. It's over towards the left side of the shallow outfield. Tough play, but it is made out there by Jack Wisniewski. And as we always see on these afternoon games, the high sky will be an issue. So right away testing Wisniewski, but he's able to shade the sun and make the catch to start things off.
Yeah, a really, really nice play from Wisniewski out there in left field. But I think that right there is exactly what you'd expect out of the veteran super senior here in San Antonio, spending his 5th season at Trinity, really taking control, very clearly communicating. Out there in left field, Brian Schaub was in the area, but kept his distance, and Wisniewski did a nice job of hauling that one in on the move.
McClure takes one inside for ball 1, a strike and a ball to the right fielder, who, as you will hear throughout these first time through the plate for the Celts, 0 for 3 yesterday. But that was a common sight throughout the box score for St. Thomas.
Yeah, just two players in this Celts order finishing the night with hits yesterday as that curveball just comes out of the hand a little bit early. Looks like that one, timing and everything for McGann on the mound, just a little bit behind. Drops that throwing arm down and leaves it up and in on the hitter, but McClure able to duck out of the way right there. A really nice response from McGann. Fixed that issue in his mechanics and fired that fastball down the middle of the plate. Last night, just those 2 hits to these Celts hitters. A couple of walks that were issued, and that's exactly what happens to start the day here. But everything on the evening was really, really dispersed. There wasn't a whole lot of traffic on the base paths for the Tigers, and that's something that they're certainly going to look to continue and keep in check here this afternoon.
Really, the best opportunity St. Thomas had all night came in the first inning. They had runners at the corners with 2 outs. It was Tristan Pitkin up at the plate now who had that single in the top half of the first, but he was then caught trying to steal second. That ended things in the first, and then the Celts really didn't have a good opportunity to score throughout the rest of the game.
And for a long time in that one, in a 0-0 ball game and what was a 1-0 ball game for a little while as well, you have to look back to that circumstance, to that situation, and circle it. You know, if they score a run there, they put some more pitches on that count for Shavana early on in the game. He might not go the distance. You have the advantage, and Murray on the mound has some support as McGann checks over there at first base. McClure back in there safely.
Pitkin really the only Celt that we could say was seeing the ball well, not only getting that one hit, but he ended up going 1 for 1 because he had 2 walks in the game. And so reaching base 3 times. Right here, the ball in the dirt, gets away from the catcher, but not taking advantage is McClure. So that one got away from Pettit a good distance, but not taking advantage.
Yeah, and it looked on the base paths like McClure saw that ball in the dirt, but instead of freezing, he saw it hit off of Pettit's chest plate and immediately retreated to the plate. I think if he stops in his tracks out there in the base paths, sees that one get away, he's probably into second base pretty safely right there.
A visit early on in the first from Tyler Pettit to Cade McGann as he falls behind 3-0, and he is joined by Dave Smith, pitching coach, who told me before today's game that it's quite weird that he did not make a single mound visit yesterday, not something he's used to. But it just goes to show how dominant Joseph Schiavone was from start to finish, that his pitching coach didn't feel the need to talk to him all night long.
Yeah, it was truly an impressive performance. And I think a big part of things were the fact that Schiavone was working as a strikeout pitcher, but he was also pitching to contact, especially late in that game when that pitch count started to get elevated. He's just more frequently dropped that big breaking ball into the zone, forcing these hitters to swing at it. And that was the one pitch they struggled with all night long. Weren't able to hit the middle third of the baseball. We saw them get under it. We saw them get on top of it. But the defense was great behind Schiavone yesterday, and they have been the past couple of games.
Runner going, but it won't matter as that's ball 4. Pettit was ready to throw down to second, but Pitkin earns the walk, and the Celts have runners on first and second with 1 out in the first.
Yeah, not the worst result for McGann right there. Falling behind 3-0 in the count and throwing to the Celt that had the best night at the plate yesterday, as you mentioned, Brian. Obviously, McGann came back with a strike, and you'd have to assume that Pitkin got the green light at that point. But better to have runners on first and second than the potential of someone moving all the way over to third here in the top of the first.
First pitch to Carrier, a ball. Jacob Carrier moving up to the cleanup spot today. The junior from Pearland. He had the other base hit for the Celts, going 1 for 3. And it was a double to the right field wall. So perhaps that hard contact, making David Wood, head coach for St. Thomas, want to put him up in that cleanup spot. And he's in the driver's seat here with the 2-0 count. Celts trying to get on the board. Something they did not do yesterday, and something that they've been prone to do this year. It was the 5th time the Celts have been shut out this season. Carrier makes contact, sends it foul the other way. Hendrick shut out St. Thomas a couple of times. They had that 1-0 loss to Texas Lutheran a week ago. And it's an offense that scores just under 6 runs a game, ranked 7th in the SCAC. So not the most high-powered offense, but they try to manufacture runs any way they can. As Carrier looks at a ball high, takes the count to 3-1.
Yeah, and right now they're exhibiting a ton of discipline and patience at the plate. It's unfortunate for McGann. 7 out of his last 9 pitches that have gone as balls. These Celts hitters are forcing him to throw strikes right here, but when he has these last 2 strikes in this at-bat been fouled off by Carrier. So a good spot to come back and load the count full right here, but have to have faith in that breaking ball in positions like this and your catcher behind the plate.
The 3-2 to Carrier, a little bit low, and Carrier will take a walk to first, and the bases will be loaded for St. Thomas.
Yeah, and this is perfect time, Brian, for something that we saw a little more frequently last night than we had earlier on this season. Defense threw really, really well, played really, really well behind Schiavone, turned a double play. Timely one here would help get them out of the inning, but day is going to be over for Cade McGann, it looks like.
A quick hook for Cade McGann. Dave Smith making his second visit of the inning, and he's not going to waste any time going to the bullpen. So the Celts load the bases in the first inning. Just 1 away, Dylan Lamb coming up next. We'll take a break on Tiger Network and be back for the new pitcher. Welcome back to Tiger Network, where Jack Martinez will come into a spot he is used to. The first-year pitcher made his collegiate debut in this exact same spot. He came into the bases-loaded situation against Babson, and he escaped it. So he will try to do the same here, starts things off with a ball to Dylan Lamb. But it was a quick outing for the starter, Cade McGann. Gives up 3 base runners, and Dave Smith coming out for the second time to take the ball from him. And this pitch high as well from Martinez, so Lamb ahead in the count, 2-0.
And looking at Martinez's last 3 outings, the first two of those, a little rougher, giving up 7 earned runs, but seemed to right the ship this past Tuesday against Our Lady of the Lake. Had a clean inning, struck out a batter, and a result that this Tiger team could certainly use right here to help them get out of the inning.
Fastball blown by Lamb to get back into this count, 2-2. Martinez had started off the year with a couple of bullpen appearances against Babson and Whitewater. The first year impressed enough to earn a couple of starts against DeSales and then Southwestern. Here gets Lamb to go, says the home plate umpire. Strike 3 for out number 2.
Yeah, and last night, that's something that I wanted to see a lot more from Joseph Shavana. I mean, he didn't really need to do it, Brian. I think that he was dominant all the way through without that high fastball. But with the frequency that these hitters saw pitches down in the zone, trying to change the eye level here this afternoon should prove incredibly successful. It's exactly what happens with that high fastball.
So now a chance for both sides to gain a big boost of momentum. And Galvan will line it the other way. And it will be foul. But for the Celts, after not scoring in 9 innings yesterday, a big 2-out hit with the bases loaded would certainly provide the energy they need to start this doubleheader. And on the other end, if the Tigers can escape the bases loaded jam with no runs allowed, you have to believe it'll give them a whole load of confidence after their 5-0 victory yesterday. So we'll see what Leo Galvan and Jack Martinez have. This pitch, a ball outside and high.
Yeah, and certainly should deliver a ton of confidence to Martinez as well. Coming into a bases-loaded situation with only 1 out in the inning.
Galvan sends it the other way towards the gap, but a man is there. The right fielder, Vonderhaar, underneath it. And Jack Martinez comes in with the bases loaded, 1 away, and doesn't allow a run. So a good start for the Tigers as they come up to bat next on Tiger Network. Trinity able to escape the bases loaded jam in the top half of the inning, and now the lineup will try to do some damage against the starting pitcher for the Celts, Chris Parsons. But we'll take a look at that starting lineup for the Trinity Tigers. Leading off, MJ Metz stepping up from the cleanup spot. Batting second at second base, Christian Holloway. Batting third in center field, Ezra Gore. The designated hitter, Nathan Brolick, getting the opportunity to hit cleanup today. Batting fifth after a big blast yesterday in left field, Brian Schaub. Batting sixth at third base, Jack Wisniewski. At catcher, batting seventh, Tyler Pettit. Batting eighth back in right field, Jack Vonderhaar. And batting ninth, the shortstop, Michael Montreza. So MJ Metz, we saw this a couple of times, Luke, at the beginning of the season against Babson, getting the leadoff spot. He had taken control of the number 4 spot in the lineup since then, but now back atop the order.
Yeah, it's a change that comes after a little bit of a rough night for Metz. 4 strikeouts yesterday, and a lot of swings that looked like that one right there. We'll see if the adjustment can be made. It's just a timing issue for Metz right now, something that hitters experience year in and year out. I have to imagine that he's going to go back to barreling the baseball up like he did early on this season, something that he experienced over the summer up in Vermont where he played summer baseball. He's just too good of a hitter to be kept in check for such a long period of time. He's going to break out of this soon, and if you ask him, I'm sure that he'd be satisfied with coming out of it at the perfect time this season in the back half of conference play, heading into that tournament, trying to make a run in the postseason.
Parsons drops in a curveball to get ahead 1-2 on Metz. MJ heading back to Vermont, recently announcing that for this summer. But thinking about why MJ might be atop the order after going 0 for 4 last night with those 4 strikeouts, perhaps just an opportunity to force him to see the ball, take some pitches, as you often try to do in the leadoff spot. But here, another strikeout for MJ Metz, so Parsons starts the day off on the right foot for St. Thomas.
Yeah, and Parsons doing a really nice job, obviously following a game plan, scouting Metz after last night's performance, coming right after the right-hander. It's a great start to the day for Parsons, part of that 1-2 punch for this Celts pitching staff. Really important that they get a solid start out of him on the mound today. Didn't use a ton out of the bullpen in the game last night. There's a big drop-off in stats and innings pitched in ERA after these first 2 guys in Murray and Parsons. So trying to steal a game from the Tigers here today is going to rest largely on his shoulders.
Up at the plate now, Christian Holloway fouled back the first delivery from Parsons. Now looks at a ball outside. We haven't seen Holloway since that Sunday afternoon game against the University of Dallas. Did not play last night, did not play against Our Lady of the Lake. And in that game, Christian went 1 for 4, scored a run. Takes a ball outside to make the count 2-1, but the last time we really saw Christian make a big impact was the 3-run homer to right field, taking it the opposite field in Game 1 of the doubleheader against Dallas. And they got that day off. And the Tigers scored 25 runs that afternoon, and it all started with that home run from Holloway.
Yeah, before that, it seemed like these Tigers were struggling to swing it a little bit. Talked about hitting the middle third of the baseball. It's something that they struggled to do in the first couple of innings of that one, that 3-run shot coming in the 4th, if I remember correctly. And then it was just an onslaught of runs, but good job from Holloway right there to take what he's given, ensure that the Tigers have a base runner on this first inning.
So Holloway earns the 5-pitch walk, and it'll bring up Ezra Gore. Gore going 1 for 4 yesterday, coming around to score. He was the only hitter in the top 6 slots in the lineup to get a hit. It was really the bottom of the order that did all the damage for the Tigers. But Gore connects with this one, sends it deep to left field, and it'll bounce off that big wall out there. Holloway hustling to third, He'll slide in safely. Gore with a double, and the Tigers are in business here in the bottom of the first.
Yeah, and Gore exited that game last night just 1 for 4, but he drove the ball off the barrel to the deepest part of the field a couple of times. We see him get out in front of that one, it coming just off the end of the bat and hit where that wall is the very tallest out in left field. That one hit a little bit more towards the hands, and he doesn't pull it as hard. That one's out of here without a doubt, and that one was absolutely on a line right there.
So Nathan Brolick has the early opportunity to bring home a couple. With runners on second and third, just one away. Brolick swings at the first pitch right back to Parsons. He checks on the runner at third. High throw, but Galvan able to collect it and step on the bag, so Brolick retired quickly for out number 2.
And stepping up into the batter's box in that 4-hole, have to imagine early on in this one that you're not going to get a fastball down the middle with 2 runners in scoring position, but Brolick goes up there hitting, sees that pitch, similar to what we saw out of Murray yesterday, fade in a little bit arm side and also dropping vertically as well. Brolick just on top of that one, unfortunately, grounds it straight back to the pitcher. Does a nice job fielding his position, making sure he checks on the runner over there at third.
Parsons now will have to deal with Brian Schaub, who launched one of the farther home runs we've seen in quite a while here in San Antonio, deep into the trees behind the left center field wall. We're still not sure if it's landed, but Schaub on a tear went 2 for 3 yesterday with that big home run and now looks to make an impact in the first. Looks at a ball that gets by Pitkin, but not far enough to score Holloway from third. Would not be shocked to see Schaub earn a walk here with that open base at first.
Yeah, and going back to that at-bat when he hit that home run, it's a similar position that he's in right now. Got ahead 2-0, saw a strike that I'm not sure he liked, but it allowed him to swing the bat. I think you're right, though, Brian. Parsons in this situation has to be careful. Recognize that you have first base open. Maybe set yourself up for a force out at any bag in the infield rather than trying to face the most prolific home run hitter in this lineup.
The count is 3-0 now on Schaub. He took a look in the on-deck circle where Wisniewski's waiting for him. So we'll see what Parsons does. Does he attack at a time when Schaub surely would have the green light, or does he pitch around him? And he doesn't get it even close, and the ball gets away. Holloway hustling from third, and he's going to score. Parsons trying to pitch around Schaub, but it ends in a run scored for the Tigers as Pitkin unable to hang on to that one.
Yeah, and just really unfortunate, somewhat similar to what we saw yesterday when the Tigers scored their first run. Ball getting past Pitkin behind the plate. But have to make the assumption that he's not expecting that breaking ball to miss so far outside. Looked like somewhat of a slider right there from Parsons, but in a 3-0 count already, just have to make sure that you hit the glove, keep those runners in place at second and third, and live to try and get out of the inning unscathed.
Nice changeup there from Parsons to get ahead on Wisniewski. That one looked like it was going right at the left-handed hitter, and then it dove back onto the middle of the plate. Wisniewski 0 for 2 yesterday, but he drove in a run and had a walk as well. And this time he's hit in the back of the leg. Bases will be loaded for the Tigers now after the Celts loaded them up in the top half. And a dangerous spot for Parsons here as he faces the catcher Tyler Pettit with a chance for the Tigers to really jump in front.
Yeah, and certainly Pettit a threat in the batter's box. We talked last night about that patented one-handed swing and the way he's able to drive the ball out of the park here in San Antonio. He can do it to both fields. But right now for Parsons on the bump, it seems like the bigger concern is that control. It's a couple of pitches in a row, slider that got past Pitkin behind the plate, and that one that hits Wisniewski pretty squarely on that lead leg. Going to need to find the control of that pitch in order to have success today. This entire Tigers batting order going up there, stepping into the box, looking to hit the fastball. If you don't have a secondary pitch to keep them honest, they can do a lot of damage.
Pettit going 1 for 3 yesterday to extend his hit streak to 7. He had homered in a couple of games in a row, didn't have one yesterday, but Tyler Pettit hitting very well and in a big spot early on here in the game 1 of the doubleheader. Big swing from Pettit, just gets a piece of it, a foul ball.
And a good job from Pettit in this at-bat. I like the approach, not going up there swinging at first pitch. Seen Parsons lead with that breaking ball, but now that he's lost that, I think you're sitting fastball right here, and if Parsons finds a way to drop that breaking ball into the zone, you're going to live with that result.
The 0-2 on the way to Pettit, taken high for a ball. Parsons coming off an outing against Texas Lutheran in which he gave up 7 earned runs in 5 innings of work. Not an uncommon sight against that big Bulldog offense. And the Tigers on the verge of doing something similar if Pettit can come up with the hit. Breaking ball just outside, Pitkin trying to frame it, but the home plate umpire not falling for it, so an even count with the bases loaded. Gore over there at third, Schaub at second, Wisniewski at first. Just one hit in this inning that came from Gore. A hit by pitch and 3 walks. 4 walks, actually, have done the damage. And a strike 3 called on the outside corner. And we're going to have to take a look at that replay because Pettit is shocked at that call.
Yeah, and that previous breaking ball was a much better one from Parsons on the mound, but still going to need to see him throw it for a strike if you're going to swing at it. I really dislike that call right there, Brian. It's close, but it looks a little low. It looks a little outside, and Pitkin behind the plate is fading to his right. So it looks like Parsons missed his spot right there. Just incredibly unfortunate to see the bat taken out of Pettit's hands right there with the bases loaded on a pitch that I think you'd agree with me probably isn't called a strike 90+% of the time.
Yeah, I was going to say you described it well, fading the other way. Usually you try to, as the catcher, you're bringing it back the other direction. That's what you see. Pitkin took it more outside, so maybe it was closer to being a strike than where it ended up, but a close call nonetheless. It goes against the Tigers, but they do get 1 run in the bottom of the first to take the lead, but it could have been a lot more. Both teams leaving the bases loaded. We'll see what St. Thomas comes up with in the top of the second. Much slower pace to this one than we had last night. But that's what tends to happen in baseball. We'll see what these two teams keep doing as the game goes along. We've got 2 today. This is just game 1 of the doubleheader between these conference rivals. But Jack Martinez will try to use that momentum from the first inning in which he got out of that bases loaded situation to keep going through this one. Lance Kahn currently at the plate. And a big swing at a breaking ball way out in front of that one. Kahn didn't get the start yesterday, but he came in late to pinch hit and played third base. He went 0 for 1. He makes contact here, sends it over to second base. Holloway gets the out. And a good start for Martinez in the second.
Yeah, and a great start coming off of that high-pressure situation in the first inning. Talked about the fact already that he's made some appearances on the mound as a starter. He's come out of the bullpen. I think the biggest thing that we can say about him is that he has the capacity to throw a lot of pitches here in this one. He could potentially bridge the gap to those later innings, those late relievers, get a closer into the game to finish things up. It's something that we saw out of him early on this season against Wisconsin Whitewater when he threw 5 innings in relief. So certainly another game where there's the potential to limit the action in the bullpen, save some arms for the last game of this doubleheader and of this series.
Martinez with the foul ball. Number 1 here on the St. Thomas roster, the senior from New Braunfels. Went 0 for 2 yesterday. The former Unicorn behind 1-2. And he starts a swing, but able to hold it back to take the count to 2-2. One of my favorite quotes all year came from Jack Martinez saying, "Pressure is a privilege." He loves the tension on the mound. He loves to come into the big spots, and we saw it here as Jack Vonderhaar with a nice sliding grab on the line drive from Martinez. So the defense helping out Martinez on the mound a little bit.
Yeah, great defense from Vonderhaar out there in right field. And I like the approach that he takes going in to slide feet first. Gives himself a lot more control over his body. And in addition to that, when you look at and compare diving head first against sliding in there, when you dive in there head first, your body's going to hit the ground hard. So not only do you have to time everything up perfectly, you have to locate the ball when you're in midair, you have to hold on to it and finish the catch through contact with the ground. So a much better approach right there and helps Tigers get out of the inning quickly.
Brown chops it to Montreza, who gets it on to Metz for the third out. So a clean 1-2-3 inning for Jack Martinez. A lot better than that first, a lot quicker than that first. Tigers coming back up to the plate after this. Defense showing up in that last half inning, partially from Jack Vonderhaar playing in right field. The senior from Woodinville, Washington, has played everywhere this year, played in left field, right field, first base as well. Just doing whatever his team needs to help them win. And he starts off his at-bat with a ball outside.
You know, Brian, I know we've talked a lot on previous broadcasts about the number of runs that this team puts up on average. You know, we mentioned the batting averages that these guys hold, but something that we've talked about a little bit as well is the potential for more guys to get going. Jack Vonderhaar, another super senior on this roster, still looking to really, really get into that groove. We saw him homer a couple of times this season. Just another left-handed bat in the Tigers' order that has the potential to do a lot of damage.
Trying to do some damage here, and he does right on cue, Luke. Gets it right over that fence in right center field, out of the reach of Fields. And Vonderhaar, with his third home run of the year, gets Trinity up 2-0 in the second.
Yeah, and it's something that we saw last night from these left-handed hitters. They pulled the ball really, really well to right field in that last shot as he rounded third base. You could see those flags blowing out. But he had plenty of power behind that one. That one hit on a line out to a pretty deep part of the ballpark. We don't see the ball go out in that spot very often, Brian.
And we also get to see the power that Vonderhaar has to all fields. His last home run a week ago coming to left field, now drives it out to right center. So the left-handed hitter able to take it out to all parts of the Trinity ballpark. It's why I suggest you never park behind the outfield wall here at Trinity. You just never know.
I think people are certainly glad that that parking out in left field is a little deeper than it is in right field with Brian Schaub swinging it from the right-handed batter's box. But with that one that he hit last night, I don't know if anyone's safe anywhere on campus.
I know I had to risk it this morning. I parked out there in left field, but in the second row closest to the tennis court, so hopefully I'll be okay. The trees should block things.
At least he doesn't know that. I feel like if we were to tell him, he might take it as a little bit of a challenge. I have to imagine that he might have hopped over to Las Palapas before the game, maybe made use of that rice cooker this morning, get the extra carbs, and try and hit your car out there in left field.
Michael Montreza goes down swinging for the first out of the inning. It'll bring the top of the order back up with MJ Metz. MJ Metz, of course, as you speak about Las Palapas and the hot cakes that they have, a part of the Hot Takes video that we aired last night. Receiving some interesting feedback so far. People not happy with Ezra Gore's mention of Kyle Lowry over DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, I think that you can make a sound argument for DeJounte Murray not being a top 5 point guard. I will accept that. I'm not going to say that that's the position that I hold, because it is not, as you know, Brian. But it starts to get a little bit ridiculous when you throw names in there like Kyle Lowry.
Maybe 5 years ago, that's a fair point to make.
Yes, 5 years ago when DeJounte Murray was not in the NBA.
Correct.
And Kyle Lowry was at his peak, then perhaps that's an acceptable take.
That swings past one up and in. Looked to be out of the zone, but Parsons putting it in a good spot to get ahead 1-2. Get a good look at the Tiger dugout there. Gore in the hole. And the rest of his teammates eagerly watching this game. Metz fouls it straight back into the bricks. Comes all the way back out to Parsons. But it's been fun to get a look at how these guys interact with one another, and it was a great way to showcase that with the Hot Takes video. Hopefully we'll have a couple more of those as we have some home games left here on Tiger Network. Our next home game on Tuesday, April 12th against the University of Mary Hardin-Baylor. The Crusaders coming into town. Big swing from Metz on a hanging breaking ball. It is carrying, and there goes that baseball. Not quite into the parking lot, but he tried, and he gets the solo shot, and he is pumped up. MJ Metz, after striking out in 5 consecutive at-bats, looks a lot more like himself on that one.
Yeah, and that has to be an absolutely incredible feeling for Metz right there. I was going to say, after that previous pitch that put him behind in the count 1-2, that ball that he fouled off to the backstop, It wasn't the result that you want on a fastball down the middle of the plate, but it was a step in the right direction because it looked like his timing was perfect. And that time, Parsons leaves a breaking ball hanging a little bit too high in the zone, and Mets, after figuring out the timing, puts a perfect swing on it to drive it out of here.
An attempt to throw over to third base. St. Thomas arguing that Mets maybe didn't step on the bag.
I think from that replay where we saw him get pretty ecstatic, he might have just stomped on the bag. It confused some people out in the field.
Holloway trying to join the home run club will fall just a little bit short, but it's off the fence, and Holloway slides into second with a double. And Parsons not missing many bats here in the second. Already homers from Vonderhaar and Metz, and now a line drive double from Holloway.
Yeah, and looks a lot like the swing that we saw last weekend when he hit one out down the line in right field. Couple of really great swings this innings from this Tiger batting order, and things don't get any easier for Parsons right here. We've already seen Gore nearly leave the yard to left field earlier on in this one.
Gore lined a double in his first at-bat. So he'll try to do something similar with Holloway out at second. First pitch swinging, Gore lines it down the line towards the Tiger bullpen. Some diving efforts from Cedric Bowman. Looks like maybe Ethan Clark out there joining in on the action. We've seen the highlights this year. Cedric has made a name for himself out in the bullpen, but not quite getting to it there. Gore behind 0-1. Looping breaking ball misses high. For Parsons on the mound, looking similar not only to his last outing against TLU, but his previous outing against Austin College as well, struggling against the Kangaroos. The 1-1 here from Parsons, fouled by Gore. Parsons giving up 6 earned runs to Austin College, making it 2 consecutive outings, giving up more than 5 runs. And that comes after he had not allowed more than 5 runs up to that point in the season. So Parsons starting things off well in the 2022 campaign, but a couple of conference matchups have been difficult for him. Right here trying to catch Holloway at second. The ball sneaks into center field, but Holloway won't be able to go anywhere. Head coach David Wood telling me when it comes to Parsons and the rest of the St. Thomas pitching staff, it all comes down to giving your team a chance to win by throwing strikes and making the opponent earn it. And here, that certainly hasn't been the problem. He's throwing strikes, the Tigers have just been hitting him. But here, able to get Gore to swing over a breaking ball in the dirt. So the second out of the inning for Parsons comes via the strikeout.
Yeah, and a really nice pitch from Parsons right there. I think just recognizing how eager Gore was in the box in that at-bat. We saw him on a couple of fastballs be well out in front of it in that first pitch of the at-bat that he pulled down the left field line. Another one to send the count to 1-2 that he hit off the end of the bat he was so out in front of. Good job from Parsons to pull the string with that slider.
Parsons starts things off with a first pitch changeup. We've seen success on that pitch. He got a similar one down to Wisniewski to get ahead. Now Brolick starts off with the changeup for a strike. Goes back to the changeup. Brolick swings and misses, so 0-2 the count to the San Antonio native, who also had a very vivid reaction to Kyle Lowry being mentioned as a top point guard. But trying to keep his hot hitting going. He went 0 for 2 yesterday and 0 for 1 so far today, but he had been 9 for his last 10. And he continues to get the opportunity, hitting 4th and in the DH spot.
Yeah, Pitkin had a little bit little bit of something to say to Parsons right there after that pitch, but to me, that one looks really, really nice. Trying to go front door with that changeup, catch Brolick looking. That one came back and was really close to that black part of the zone, but doesn't matter as he comes back with that nice curveball, 12-6 action on that one of the first times we've seen him with that delivery here today. Gets out of the second inning, still just a 3-0 ball game, something that he's going to need to carry forward in the rest of this one, trying to keep this score where it's at.
Yeah, Parsons strikes out Gore and Brolick to end the inning, but the Tigers do some damage in the second. Jack Vonderhaar and MJ Metz with solo home runs to put the Tigers up 3-0 as we head to the top of the third in San Antonio. A 3-run lead now for Jack Martinez on the mound. And Israel Fields trying to make something happen for the Celts. Shows bunt and misses for strike one. Fields, the freshman from New Orleans, Louisiana. Tough swing there on a ball in the dirt. Falls behind 0-2. Fields, a freshman at St. Thomas, but he transferred from Texas College. One of 23 transfers on this St. Thomas roster. And a close one there, but Fields able to stay in the box. Now 1-2. And that's strike three called by the home plate umpire. Martinez dotting that one on the inside corner. And Fields on his way back to the dugout.
Yeah, Brian, thinking back to the first pitch of the at-bat where Fields looked to lay down a bunt for a base hit. Have to like that approach right here for these Celt hitters. Not a whole lot of base runners over the past couple of days. On top of that, those batted balls that have been put into play haven't been the toughest plays for these infielders, for these outfielders to make. So trying to put the pressure on the Tiger infield right here is an approach that I really like, especially early on in this one. Try to get things rolling, have a little bit of a snowball effect.
Interesting pitch here. It looked like McClure was wanting time, was not ready to go. Had just one hand on the bat, but the home plate umpire allowing the pitch to land for a strike. Now McClure making clear that he wants time, ready to go in the box. A little check swing on its way to the St. Thomas dugout, and Pettit makes the catch. Nice running grab from the catcher, Pettit. And 2 quick outs in the third.
Yeah, and that one, a really, really tough play. Any ball batted in that area right behind home plate, incredibly tough. But this one, on a little bit of a check swing, not going to get the same type of height. And obviously, it's going to limit the movement that it has while it's up in the air. But it forces Pettit to get that mask off quickly and locate it behind home plate. You pointed out he does a nice job hauling that one in on the move right there. So a great all-around defensive play for Pettit.
An incredible reaction time to pop up quickly, like you said, get the mask off and find the ball. So much going on for the catcher. And the catcher also at the plate, Tristan Pitkin. And both Pitkin and McClure now having some interesting interactions with the umpire, making sure that they get the time that they want. Delivery high from Martinez. Another ball inside to Pitkin. So he's ahead 3-1. He earned the walk his first time up when Cade McGann was still in for the Tigers. And ball 4 again to Pitkin. So after 2 walks last night, he has 2 more today. And the catcher on his way to first for Carrier now at the plate.
Yeah, and a lot of really nice at-bats from Pitkin in this series. But you have to like the approach that these Tiger pitchers are taking on the mound. He comes into today hitting .341, has an on-base percentage of .440 that's going to continue to increase. But given the fact that this pitching staff, Joseph Schiavone, gave up only 2 hits yesterday, they have to be confident that they're going to keep the rest of this order in check, and that's something that's happened so far in this one.
Still no hits on the board for St. Thomas this afternoon, but they do have 4 walks, so they've had the base runners. They had the bases loaded, if you remember, in the top of the first. Weren't able to bring anything home. Carrier with a low crouch stance. Looks at a strike. 0-2 now to the designated hitter. Carrier making his 18th appearance of the year. Not as many starts as some of the everyday starters, but has become a pretty regular presence in the St. Thomas lineup. And he came into the weekend hitting .385. He was lower in the lineup yesterday, but now firmly in that number 4 spot. Ball misses high. You got a good look at a little bit of a choke up on the bat with 2 strikes. Not drastic, but he does seem to have moved up his hands a little bit, just trying to make contact with the 2-strike count. And he nearly chases at that one, but able to hold it back. Good pitch from Martinez, but Carrier doesn't bite. And he looks over at his third base coach, the 2-2 count. We saw Pitkin over there at first take off in the first inning yesterday. Not going anywhere here. Carrier sending it the other way, right to Holloway, who flips it on to second for the 3rd out of the inning. So some hard contact from Carrier, but no damage done. Martinez keeps St. Thomas off the board. Trinity still up 3. 0 still on the board for St. Thomas, and the Tigers will look to add more in the bottom of the third. Brian Schaub will start things off. He walked his first time up. And Parsons starts him off with the ball outside.
Yeah, at the end of last inning, Brian, we saw Parsons go to that 12-6 curveball. One of the few times that he's thrown that pitch so far in this one, but now working through the Tigers' batting order for the second time here today, trailing by 3 runs already. You have to imagine that's something that he's going to have to pull out, especially considering the fact that even though that slider's gotten a little bit tighter, he's thrown it more frequently around the plate. It hasn't induced a ton of swing and misses as the Tigers get into the box and remain patient up there.
Out of 7 pitches today, Brian Schaub has only seen 1 strike. We'll see if Parsons continues to be careful with them here. That one was a breaking ball that caught a lot of the plate, but Schaub unable to connect with it, just fouls it off near the plate. Schaub takes some time to adjust his batting gloves and prepare for the 2-2 delivery. The Pennsylvania native leading the SCAC and 12th in the nation with walks. And ball 3 in the dirt. It's no surprise that pitchers are afraid to go right after the power hitter, who with his 2-run shot yesterday now has 6 on the year. After 14 last year, that marks 20 as a Trinity Tiger. But here will earn the walk once again. Something we saw over and over last year, and we keep seeing it in 2022. Parsons not wanting to mess with Schaub, instead will deal with Wisniewski.
You think back to last night, how that game could have been different if they did issue a walk to Brian Schaub. I talked a bit about that at bat here in this one. Schaub going ahead 2-0. That one ultimately ending up at a 3-1 count, but trying to pitch to him, stay competitive even though you have a base open in the infield. It seems like close play over there at first base, but Schaub able to get back in there safely. We'll see if we have a replay for you right here.
Schaub certainly leaning towards second a bit, but he gets back in there safely. Now Wisniewski shows bunt, and he's going to be hit again. Poor Jack Wisniewski, the target from these pitches from Parsons. He's now been hit in both of his plate appearances. But for the Tigers, it'll be another opportunity to bring home some runs. Runners on first and second with nobody out.
Yeah, and certainly want to be willing to wear some pitches if you're in the batter's box for the Tigers right now. But it's been a couple of sliders that have found Jack Wisniewski's legs, and certainly a precarious position to get hit in. Don't want to wear anything off the foot, off the hard bones. Don't want to wear anything off that knee for sure, because even if it's not really doing any damage, a stinger in that spot can take you right out of a game.
Ball in the dirt. Pitkin does a nice job sliding over and blocking it. What has to be more frustrating for Parsons is the fact that Wisniewski looked to be giving himself up with the sacrifice bunt. Instead, not only does Schaub move over to second, but Wisniewski joins him on the bases as well at first. Now Pettit not showing bunt at all, laying off the first one. Now the 1-0, a changeup that sinks down. Pettit able to lay off.
Similar to what we saw when Caden McGann was on the mound way back in the first inning. A lot of pitches that were thrown, missing the zone. Really forces Parsons in this situation right here to throw strikes, and the one pitch that he's gone to consistently do so is that fastball. And exactly what he goes to right there. Nicely located on the outside part of the plate. A lot of these right-handed hitters for Trinity coming up, stepping into the box, eager after a couple of their teammates have already left the yard here in this one.
Two, one, fouled straight back into the screen.
And that swing a little bit better from Pettit up at the plate right now. Timing certainly on cue, similar to what we saw from MJ Metz earlier on in this one, and you know what happened after that swing, Brian.
Parsons able to fight back from down 2-0. 3 consecutive strikes, including that one swinging from Pettit. So the first out of the inning will bring up Jack Vonderhaar. Vonderhaar using that 16-mile-per-hour wind we have here in San Antonio, blowing out towards center. And his line drive caught that jet stream and ended up out of here for the solo home run. Parsons, for the second time we've seen him flip around, try to get that runner at second. But Schaub not going anywhere, steps right back on the bag.
And I know that they checked over there at second base earlier on in this game when Christian Holloway occupied that bag, but he was all the way out of the frame of this same shot you see right here. Very close to picking him off, but Brian Schaub, as you mentioned, doesn't seem to be moving on the base paths, especially with that shorter throw for Pitkin behind the plate. We've seen him throw very aggressively down there to third. Caught Montreza running in the game last night, so I don't think that the Tigers will be on the move trying to swipe that bag.
Another hit by pitch. Parsons gets a piece of Vonderhaar. And after getting ahead of the lefty with a strike, not what Parsons wanted to do, loads the bases now for Michael Montreza. Tigers already up 3-0. They'll look to break it wide open here in the bottom of the third. Montreza 0 for 1 today, but he had a hit and a run scored yesterday. He's now 8 for his last 14 at the plate. And in that stretch, he's driven in 6, so you see that batting average now up over 300 for the shortstop. And he swings at the first pitch, grounds it foul.
Yeah, it's really been two different stories for Parsons on the mound, facing righties versus facing lefties. It's really become obvious how heavily he relies on that slider, and he's had a ton of break on it here in this one. It's more than anything hurt him against those left-handed hitters, but a really nice pitch right there. It's just goes to prove how successful it's been against the righties so far in this one.
We've seen Montreza willing to take it the opposite field. So if Parsons continues to live on the outside part of the plate, we'll see if Montreza can poke it over to right field. Here he pulls it to left field, going down the line, but foul. Just unable to keep it past that right field line, that left field line. So Montreza will walk on back home.
And a nice swing right there from Montreza. Just well out in front of that one. The way that the wind is blowing out here in San Antonio, you have to imagine if he sits back and waits just a little bit, those hands stay close to his body, that one probably leaves the yard without much question.
Breaking ball in the dirt. Pitkin again doing a nice job to keep it in front of him. Now with the runner 90 feet away, has to keep everything in front. We already saw a run score on a wild pitch.
But a good adjustment made from Pitkin right there. Talk about that wild pitch. Coming back all the way in the first inning. Catcher, he's really tuned in to how his pitcher's throwing so far in this one, cognizant of how much break Parsons has had on that slider, where he's starting it, where it's finishing consistently. And a couple of nice blocks in a row because of that.
Yeah, another nice block there, but now Parsons nowhere to put Montreza. The bases loaded for the Tigers. Schaub at third, Wisniewski at second, Vonderhaar at first. The 3-2 with one out. Montreza swings at a pitch close on the outside corner. Would have been a tough one either way. The home plate umpire has shown that he's willing to call that a strike. So Montreza having to protect and just unable to make contact.
Yeah, Brian, you're exactly right with that one right there. The umpire had shown earlier on in this one that he is willing to call a pitch in that location a strike. Saw that one go against Tyler Pettit in that first inning when the Tigers were able to load the bases. Certainly want to pick up the bat, make the adjustment as a hitter in the box, but not entirely happy with the fact that that first pitch way back in the first inning was called a strike and forces you to pick up the bat here.
Parsons trying to get out of this inning with no additional runs on the board, but it'll have to be by getting the leadoff hitter Metz out. He homered his last time up. Looks at a ball outside. Count 1-1 to MJ Metz. Metz was his fourth home run of the year in the second inning. He had gone 13 games without a home run, his longest stretch of his career at Trinity. So after going 13 games, maybe just do it in consecutive at-bats. Here, a ball in the dirt. But we knew it wasn't going to be long before Metz connected with one. And it looks like that promotion up to the top of the order from the 4th spot helping him out today. A 2-1 on the way from Parsons. Metz tags it to center field, and it's down for a base hit. Metz now caught in between first and second. He's going to be out trying to get back to first, but 2 runs do come across to score. Schaub and Wisniewski cross home plate before Metz is out at first, so a big base hit for MJ Metz puts the Tigers up 5-0. We'll get a look at the replay. Metz just sending this one into center field. It drops in front of Fields. So Schaub scores, Wisniewski scores. And then a heads-up play from the shortstop to get Metz out at first. But the Tigers up 5 as we head to the top of the 4th in San Antonio. Tigers continue to build on their lead. They've scored in every inning so far today. And Martinez will have a 5-run lead to work with as Dylan Lamb steps to the plate in the 4th. Lamb gets ahead 2-0 as Martinez delivers a couple of balls. Lamb has been quiet in this series so far. 0 for 1 today, 0 for 4 yesterday as he looks at a strike.
And as you mentioned in the last inning, Brian, Celts remain hitless into the 4th inning here in San Antonio. That one nearly getting Lamb on that lead leg. Something that we saw, the leadoff hitter last inning was a bunt for a hit attempt. Ultimately didn't get the baseball down on the infield, but have to like that approach of forcing the issue. Lamb will take the 5-pitch walk to start the top of the 4th here, but it's important for these Celts and this entire lineup to try and get runners on base early on, especially when it's some of the speediest guys on your roster.
Absolutely, a great point to bring up. Lamb had yet to reach base in the series, but he now gets on first with the walk. And Lamb, 14 for 14 on stolen base attempts. One of the main catalysts for this St. Thomas team, and you know Martinez is aware of that, checking on him right away. We talked a ton about it yesterday in the opening game of the series. St. Thomas, their specialty, the stolen base. They came in with 76 on the year, but he won't get a chance. A grounder to short, Montreza to Holloway to Metz for the double play. And one way to avoid the stolen base, a double play on the first pitch of the at-bat.
Yeah, a really nice job from Martinez right here to come right back at the hitter with the fastball. Something that we saw yesterday for the first time in a couple of games. Not something that the Tigers and this defense has taken advantage of, but I think just goes to show how well they're playing at this point in the year.
Kahn goes up and gets that one, and it gets past the dive of Vonderhaar. There is hit number 1 for the Celts. Kahn stops at second base with the double. And St. Thomas finally in the hit column.
Yeah, and unfortunate for them, the mistakes, not even mistakes on the base pass being made here today. Unfortunate that they hit into that double play. But for that ball to get past Vonderhaar out there in right field right afterwards, certainly unfortunate for this St. Thomas team right now. But a nice effort, nice attempt out there in right field. Jack Vonderhaar does everything right. Has a nice read on that baseball. He dives in the alley knowing that he has the center fielder and Ezra Gore backing him up right there. Gore does a nice job of getting to that baseball. If it gets down either way, the runner is going to be on second base at the very least. But Gore does a nice job of getting to that one quickly, getting it back into the infield, and ensuring that Kahn is limited to just 2 bags.
Strike on the first pitch to Martinez. We have a Martinez versus Martinez battle. They might be spelled the same. They are not pronounced the same. Jack Martinez, as you may remember if you've been watching Tiger baseball, has that Louisiana background. So the pronunciation Martinez, but Noah Martinez at the plate, and Martinez strikes out swinging. So the Celts get some action on the base pass. They get a base hit and a walk, but still no runs on the board for St. Thomas on the weekend. Tigers up 5-0, headed to the bottom of the 4th.
Now pitching for the Celts, number 35, Josh Middleton.
New pitcher on the mound for St. Thomas. It is number 35, Josh Middleton, the senior from Katy, Texas. And he'll have to come in and face the heart of the Trinity order. Christian Holloway up first. And Holloway takes a ball inside. Middleton with a short outing his last time on the mound. Going just a third of an inning, giving up a run and 3 walks against Our Lady of the Lake. Holloway grounds this one past the dive of the third baseman and into left field for a single.
And a nice swing from Holloway right there, but as Middleton enters this game, important to note, Brian, we've already seen Landon Murray, we've already seen Chris Parsons, the only 2 Celts in this pitching staff that have thrown more than 40 innings so far this season. After those 2, a big drop-off. Next is Brady Watson with 21 innings. After that, Miles Simmons with 13 1/3. So some pretty big discrepancies in the bullpen for the Celts. An opportunity for the Tigers to really take advantage here. 5 runs already on the board, a couple more innings to work with, trying to make it another short game. We saw a couple in the series last weekend.
Watson, who we expect to see in Game 3 of the series, Game 2 of the doubleheader. He had the Game 3 start against TLU last weekend, so St. Thomas looks to be sticking with their same rotation. Middleton trying to bridge that gap and keep Trinity at 5 because, as you mentioned, it could definitely get to the point if the Tigers reach that double-digit mark, which they've done in 7 of their last 8. Gore awaiting the 1-1 from Middleton. It's in the dirt. Holloway sticking at first. Gore with his double in the first inning, extending his hit streak to 15 games, the longest hit streak that any Tiger has had this season. So Gore continues to be a steady presence in that third spot of the lineup. Lots of changes around him. Never a consistent lineup, but one thing you know, Ezra Gore will be in there. Earlier today, not sure if they're all still there, but we saw a bunch of football players behind the Tiger dugout. Have to think they're supporting their teammate.
Yeah, a little extra motivation for Ezra Gore. Look back at that last at-bat when he went up there swinging after a couple of Tigers had already hit home runs in the inning. I'm sure he was cognizant of his teammates out there. I know those football players in big groups are loud, but they're certainly more prone than any other team on campus, really, to go out and support the fellow teams in this athletic department.
And what the other teams in this athletic department have done this year has been nothing short of amazing. It's been quite the 2021-2022 season for Trinity all across campus, and it continues today. Examples all around with the success as Brolick squares up to bunt, but will have to pull it back, a ball up and in. Earlier today, men's tennis defeating Austin College, women's tennis defeating Austin College as well. So both tennis teams going up to Sherman and pulling in a conference victory. And here in San Antonio, just across campus, the softball team sweeping Austin College in a doubleheader. And Luke, we've been keeping track of that softball team, their remarkable turnaround. With that doubleheader sweep today, they are officially over 500 at 17-16.
Yeah, and a 17-16 mark, incredibly impressive when you look at the context of their season. A rough start to it, dropping their first 12 games, but with today's victories, they moved to 17-4 in their last 21 games. They've played incredibly well in their SCAC schedule, but things get tougher for them the next couple of weekends. After the turnaround they've had, the start to the season they've had, at least in SCAC play, you have to imagine that they're incredibly confident and up to that challenge.
The challenge will be in the form of St. Thomas. The Celts on the softball side will pay a visit to the Tigers, and that will start on Friday with a doubleheader at 1 and 3 p.m. before a Saturday game at 12. And for Tiger fans in the area who want to catch some good action, that might be the best weekend to see softball, as baseball will be on the road at Shriner. So if you don't want to drive to Kerrville, but you still want to see some good action, you can catch the softball team. It's Good Friday. It's Passover. So lots of holidays and lots of good action to watch as well. Brolick, after a long break, a visit to the mound, still at the plate with a 1-1 count. No longer showing bunt, but he won't need to bunt for the runners to move on, as Middleton called for a balk. Not quite sure what happened, but he had an awkward delivery to the plate, and it'll move Gore and Holloway 90 feet. Tennis and softball, the spring sports in action, track and field as well, but today felt a little like the fall. We've got a spring volleyball tournament going on campus, and I have to say it's a real pleasure to see that action going on. Great reminders of the success we had in the months of the fall.
Yeah, and certainly one of the most impressive teams on campus, Brian. One of the most fun to watch as well. Incredibly enjoyable to get into Calguard Gymnasium, watch that team play, watch the energy that they play with, and how motivated they are by themselves and each other on the court.
It's always nice to see the days when there's action all across campus. There's such lively energy when you see opponents in town, buses in the parking lot from the opposing schools. That tournament bringing about 6 schools to Trinity, and we have, of course, St. Thomas and Austin College. Right here, Nathan Brolick lines one into left field. Holloway will score easily. Gore trying to join him, and he's going to be safe at home. Brolick will try to take second, and he's going to be safe. Nathan Brolick with the 2 RBI single gives Trinity a 7-0 lead.
Yeah, and last night, Brolick going 0 for 2 at the plate on the evening, but he swung the bat really well a couple of times. Unfortunately, got the short end of the stick on a scorer's decision on a ball that was similarly hit up the middle, shaded towards that left side. Just a great approach after falling behind in that at-bat. 1-2, shortened the swing up, kept the hands on the inside, and was just willing to go the other way with a baseball. Found a hole in the defense, and he extended the Tigers' lead to 7-0 here in the bottom of the 4th.
It's 7-0, and there's still nobody out in the bottom of the 4th. The Tigers really starting to pull away. They have scored in every inning so far. They have 1 in the first. They scored a pair in the second and the third, and already 2 runs across in the 4th. This one in the dirt. Pitkin can't find it, and Brolick will advance to third. And things just really spiraling out of control for St. Thomas now.
Yeah, Brian, this has really been the case all afternoon long. Balls in the dirt are incredibly difficult to deal with, and Pitkin, hats off to him, has done a rather tremendous job to this point. It's just, when you see so many in the dirt, some of them are bound to get away at some point. Very few of them have we seen him not put his body on. That one, just an awkward bounce that gets away from him. But he's worked tremendously hard behind the plate, having to deal with some pitchers that have struggled just a little bit to find the zone consistently.
The 1-2 to Schaub misses inside. Middleton thought he might have had it. Instead, the count 2-2. And a score like this, not at all what we expected from this series. We expected what we saw last night, a pitcher's duel between Landon Murray and Joseph Shavana that went the way of the Tigers. But it was a close back-and-forth affair. But here, not what we've had, and Middleton, who gets ahead in the count 1-2, ends up hitting Schaub. So runners will be at the corners still, nobody out. But it's a surprise, especially when you take a look at how these two teams fared last year. The first time that St. Thomas ever faced Trinity in baseball, and the games were close throughout in Houston. Trinity pulling off the sweep but it was an 8-7 victory in 10 innings in Game 1, a 10-7 victory in Game 2, and a 13-12 victory in Game 3. So each of those games decided by fewer than 3 runs. And we expected something similar here, close battles between these two teams. Wisniewski grounds it to second. A high throw on to first will prevent the double play from being completed. Brolick will come across to score. Wisniewski will move on to second. 8-0 now for the Tigers. So taking a look at those games from last year and then considering how St. Thomas played close games against TLU just a week ago, we really thought St. Thomas would be hungry for some victories here in San Antonio, and they certainly are, but the Tigers have just been a buzzsaw that they have not been able to stop. Now 8 wins in a row for Trinity, and St. Thomas doesn't seem to have a response for this Trinity effort.
And you mentioned those 8 consecutive wins for the Tigers. They've really seemed to have figured things out. You look at this team, they're playing well in really every aspect of the game right now. We saw it last weekend when they pitched well, the defense played well, they hit for contact, they hit for power. A lot of that is carrying over this weekend. It's really good to see at this part of the year, right in the heart of the conference schedule, something that they're going to need to continue if they want to try and break away, pull away from Texas Lutheran, who they were picked to finish tied atop the standings with at the beginning of the year.
And when talking to head coach David Wood for St. Thomas, asked him what he told his team after that series at TLU, and he said that the message was, we belong in this conference. They are new to the SCAC. This is just their 3rd season as a university, and the losses, the close losses, showed that they can make some noise in this conference. They wanted to come down here and continue to show that that was the case, but Trinity showing why they are the class of the conference. Pettit here lining it to right field. Wisniewski will tag up on the flyout. So Pettit retired, but a runner does move over.
Yeah, a really nice job on the base paths right there from Wisniewski, recognizing pretty much immediately off the bat that one on a line, hit directly at the right fielder for St. Thomas, retreats back to the base quickly and is in there tagging up without much question.
So Vonderhaar will step to the plate with a runner still over there at third. 2 outs now in the bottom of the 4th. The first pitch to Vonderhaar, a strike on the outside part of the plate. Wood not the only one to acknowledge the difficulties of defeating Trinity and TLU. In the home series we've had with Southwestern and Dallas, Coach J.C. Bunch and Coach Eric Grafton also relaying the message that teams are well aware that until you can knock off Trinity and TLU, you're not going to go very far in the SCAC. St. Thomas having a hard time sticking with Trinity, but they do get the 3rd out of the inning here. After 3 runs come across to score for the Tigers, 2 hits and an error allowed them to come through. After 4 in San Antonio, the Tigers comfortably ahead 8-0. Lots of conversation about the conference action in the last half inning, so worth taking a look at what is going on around the SCAC today.
Yeah, and it looks pretty similar across the board, Brian. similar to what we have here today. Some big discrepancies on the scoreboard across the conference. Centenary leading Dallas 14-4 in game 1 of that doubleheader today. A couple of games already have gone final. Texas Lutheran taking their game at Austin College 12-1. And Southwestern, after a rough start to the year, after a tough game last night when they trailed 3-1 going into the 8th inning, came out on top then. You have to imagine it's a effect that was similar to what Trinity experienced out in Centenary when they visited Shreveport. Tigers, after that first loss of that series at Friday night game when they were run ruled, have turned around. They've rattled off 8 consecutive wins and look strong here again in this one. Southwestern, after that comeback last night, turned things around today in an 18-0 game, out hitting the Mountaineers 20-3.
It's a big series for Southwestern. They really all will be for the rest of the year as Brown pops this one up in the infield. Pettit unable to snag it. A tough play for the catcher. We've seen him go behind the plate once to get that little pop fly. This one a little too tough for him to get. We'll get a look at the replay. Brown running out of the box just in case, and it benefits him as Pettit drops it at the last second here for the leadoff base runner.
Yeah, and typically anything right on the plate, especially behind it towards that backstop, is going to be the responsibility of the catcher. But even those are incredibly difficult to haul in, so those that are in towards the rest of the infielders, you want to see someone else, one of those corner infielders, try and take charge. Just looked like on that one, Pettit had called everyone else off, trying to take charge himself in a really tough spot.
We'll see if St. Thomas can build some sort of rally here, take advantage of that drop pop fly. It's being called an error since it did hit the glove of Pettit, so still just one hit on the board for the Celts. Top of the order back up in Fields. But when you return to looking at the SCAC, from what we've seen with results around the conference, it seems like the final 2 spots will come down to 4 teams. St. Thomas, Centenary, and St. Thomas here will get the opportunity to move up. Brown takes second on the errant throw to first. But St. Thomas at 5-5 currently, Centenary at 4-5, Schreiner at 4-6, and Southwestern at 3-7, but climbing with that victory today will be 4-7. Seems like those 2 spots up for grabs between those 4 teams, and so you look ahead on the schedule. St. Thomas hosting Southwestern a week from today. Seems like that will be a big series when it comes down to May and who will make that tournament at the end of the year.
And you look at that standings, those standings, and you can really break the teams up into a little bit of a tier list. Trinity and Texas Lutheran still remain at the top of the conference. They're the big dogs in the SCAC. After them, Centenary had taken a couple of games as that one is driven out to right field. That one gets down in the gap between Vonderhaar and Gore. The first time in this series, St. Thomas will scratch a run across. It's Brown coming all the way around to score from second base. Just a really nice swing from Fields right there.
So the Celts had gone 14 innings without a run, dating back to that Game 3 against Texas Lutheran, 9 without one yesterday. The first 4 scoreless today, but Fields brings home a run for the Celts here in the 5th.
But back to our conversation about the conference. You look at Trinity and Texas Lutheran, who have continued to separate themselves from everyone else. Centenary able to grab one game as that one skied out to left field. Routine play for Brian Schaub out there to record the first out of the inning for Trinity. For the rest of these teams, those 4 teams that you rattled off, Brian, really imperative to try and take victories against those top teams the same way that Centenary did. have to win those games, try and steal something from those top teams, and then make sure that you take care of business against those teams in the middle and at the bottom of the pack. You can't afford to drop any of those games if you're hoping to make that postseason tournament.
Absolutely, and it's what likely places Centenary in that kind of middle tier between those two, between the top and the rest of the conference, as Centenary has been able to pull off a victory against both TLU and Trinity. So they seem to have that third spot a little more secured than others. But then you look at St. Thomas, Southwestern, and Schreiner. It'll be a dogfight for that last spot. Martinez with the 0-2 to Pitkin, foul back. Pitkin, no official at-bat in the box score because he has 2 walks on the day. He chops one off himself in the batter's box for a foul ball. Pitkin not only seeing the ball well, but he came into this series as one of the hotter hitters in the conference. For the week of March 21st to March 27th, he was named the SCAC Hitter of the Week. He went 7 for 10 and drove in 6 runs to earn that honor.
And certainly can tell that this Tiger pitching staff respects him. Walked away from the game yesterday with a couple of walks. He's already issued or received a couple here in this one. Looks like there's a little bit of discrepancy with the count right there. These Tiger pitchers really remain confident. They've attacked him, or at least seemed to have attacked him so far in this one. For Martinez, who's come in out of the bullpen, just struggling to get control of that curveball, but see that one left a little bit up, and for Pitkin, just a little bit too good looking to lay off of.
It's the first time Pitkin's been retired today, and it leaves 2 outs for Carrier. Runner at second. Carrier swings at the first pitch. Holloway ranges over to his left, gets the 3rd out. So St. Thomas scores their first run of the series, but Trinity still ahead, 8-1, headed to the bottom of the 5th. Another call to the bullpen for St. Thomas, this time answered by Nick Petro, the junior from Houston, Texas, in now. His first pitch to Michael Montreza, a ball. Petro, like so many of his teammates, a transfer student. He transferred from San Diego City College. His second pitch also outside to Montreza, so he falls behind 2-0. Last time we saw Petro was against Our Lady of the Lake. As he still can't find the strike zone against Montreza. But Petro going an inning against the Saints, giving up 3 hits and 2 runs, one of which were earned. He also walked a pair and struck out a pair. And he'll hit Montreza because that's what has been the trend today. A bunch of hit batters for the Tigers. That's now 4 that I can remember. 2 times Wisniewski, Schaub, and now Montreza.
Yeah, and for Petro, a rough start here on the afternoon. 3 pitches out of the zone, and looking at his statistics on the season, that seems to have been a common occurrence for him. 8 1/3 innings pitched coming into this one. 13 walks given up. Certainly a little bit of discrepancy right there. Want to limit those numbers specifically. But when you're facing an offense as prolific as this one that's already shown what they can do, hitting for power, hitting for contact, doing just a superb job of moving runners around the base paths with so much traffic here in this one. Certainly difficult to go out there and tell them to just throw strikes.
Certainly easier said than done. As he misses on another pitch outside to Met. It's actually 5 hit batters for the Tigers. So 4 Tigers that have been hit. Wisniewski's been hit twice. But Schaub, Montreza, and Vonderhaar also have been hit. So not a category anybody wants to rise in, but Tigers will take the base runner, certainly.
Yeah, and based on that conversation that you had with Jeremy Wolf last weekend, that really became evident as he shared Coach Scannell's advice to the players, at least back in 2016.
You know, it's really funny that you bring that up because I went the next day to Coach Scannell and Coach Waters, and I said, did you get a chance to see that Jeremy Wolf was on the broadcast? They had no idea. They were excited. Oh, how was that? That must have been fun. Wild, of course. And I said, yeah, he even brought up that you, Coach Scannell, would tell the guys to stick their hands out, put their elbows in, and he laughed and he said, of course he said that, because I'm the exact opposite of that. He does not like his hitters getting hit by the pitch. He wants them in there making contact and doing damage with the bat. And so he's like, of course Wolf would go on there and tell lies about me. So we don't know what to believe here.
Yeah, I didn't know if I could trust him or not. Couldn't get my name right. And I feel like that was a pretty easy tell. I had a good time on the broadcast, though. It was such a pleasure to have him on, have his perspective. Just get to hear him talk about his times in a uniform here, the experience that he had winning a national championship as well.
It's been 6 years since that national championship back in 2016. The first in program history for the Tigers. It was their second trip to the World Series. Mets here drawing a walk. And this Tiger team looking up to that 2016 squad. They're brought up a lot in practice as the beacon to look up to. This is a Trinity baseball program that has won the SCAC 13 times. And it's that SCAC championship that gives them the straight ticket to the NCAA tournament if they can get it. Last year, it wasn't as easy as that, TLU winning the conference tournament, so Trinity having to get an at-large bid. And then Trinity fell short to Johns Hopkins and Aurora for an early exit in the NCAA regional. But Trinity looking to get back there at the end of this season in May. And if they keep playing like they've been these past couple of weeks, I don't think there's anyone around the country that wants to face Trinity.
No, I'd certainly have to agree with you. They're taking care of business against these teams that are still competing for those last spots in that postseason tournament. It's really going to be the test coming here in San Antonio a couple of weeks from now against Texas Lutheran as the mark of where they're really at this season. Look back to those games early on, those really the most competitive opponents that they've seen this year, and Babson that came into town, that series of 4 games against Wisconsin Whitewater, that opening weekend out there in Birmingham when they played Birmingham Southern, Washington University, and I believe Lynchburg. Just great competition that they loaded up the beginning of their schedule with. They didn't have the most favorable outcomes in all of those games. They struggled in some areas on the mound. In the field defensively, a lot of errors committed at that point of the year. They've cleaned those things up. They look incredibly, incredibly strong in recent weeks. That 8-game winning streak that we've returned to consistently. All signs are pointing in the right direction for this team right now.
Holloway chops this one to the shortstop, Brown. A nice play from him gets Holloway out at first, but the runners do move up 90 feet apiece. So Montreza at third, Metz at second. And Luke, that early season schedule looking even better now than it did at the time. So Birmingham Southern and Wash U were in the top 10 at the time that Trinity played them. But Lynchburg, the only team that Trinity lost to that weekend, was not ranked at the time. But now you take a look at the D3 baseball standings, and Lynchburg is number 5 in the country. Birmingham Southern now all the way up at number 3, and they even received a first-place vote. And then rounding out the top 10 is Wisconsin Whitewater at number 10. And so those are 3 top 10 teams that Trinity has faced. Wash U not currently in the top 25, but at the time they were in the top 10. And so it's easy to forget because that was way back in February and March, but this Trinity team has gone up against spectacular opponents, and they held their own and did really, really well against some of the best teams in Division III.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about Lynchburg currently sitting at number 5, and the pitcher that they put on the mound to start this Tigers season, a game that Trinity ultimately dropped by just 1 run, coming back late in that one. But you look at Brandon Pond, who's thrown incredibly well for Lynchburg. I think the region pitcher of the year, certainly has his name in the pot to be an All-American in the Division III level. So a tough task to open the year, but despite that, the Tiger Bats came alive in that game. They came alive the rest of that weekend, and those are the games, the types of experiences, the types of opponents that you need to face in order to be most successful, something that I think that this team really lacked last season when pandemic restrictions were still in place.
I remember head coach Tim Scannell telling me that Brandon Pond is one of the best pitchers he has ever seen at the Division III level, so certainly high praise from Coach Scannell, and he has proven to be a great pitcher this season, and the Tigers continue to prove they're a great team as they have the bases loaded and forcing a pitcher change. Petro out of the game. We'll take a quick break before meeting the new pitcher from St. Thomas.
Now pitching for St. Thomas, 42, Isaac Dongo.
Welcome back to Tiger Network. Trinity with the bases loaded, and the new pitcher for St. Thomas, Isaac Adongo, one of the best stories, not only on St. Thomas's roster, but I have to say, across collegiate baseball. You see where he's from, Lira, Uganda. So he is the first ever collegiate baseball player from Uganda to play in the United States. He came straight over from Africa to the University of St. Thomas, where he is a freshman, and he is pitching here in SCAC play against the Trinity Tigers.
Yeah, just a remarkable story. There's so much that can be said in a moment like this. Really, really awesome to see him on the mound. You look at the statistics that he comes into this one with. ERA that's elevated. Walks are up there. A lot of things elevated and certainly not favorable, but you look on the left side of your screen, you circle the fact that he's a freshman. We've talked a lot about this program facing Trinity for the first time ever last season, visiting San Antonio this weekend for the first time in program history. He's going to be a part of this program for the next 4 years at least, and it's one that's growing, one that's gaining competitiveness, and it's going to be incredibly, incredibly exciting to watch.
And I asked Coach Wood, how does someone end up coming from Uganda to the University of St. Thomas in Houston? And Wood said it's a fantastic question, as Odongo's first pitch is a ball to Brolick. And he said from what he understands, Houston has one of the largest Ugandan populations in the United States behind Boston. And so it made sense for him to come to a community where several people from Uganda live. Of course, not a huge population anywhere, but relatively large in Houston. And so it was a good fit for him. The D3 route seemed to make sense for someone coming from overseas. And it's how he ended up becoming a Celt.
Brian, I'm not sure if you have the answer for me, but I assume you're a little bit more knowledgeable on his career. Could you tell us a little bit about his experience as a player before college even?
Absolutely. As he prepares the 1-1, misses high to Nathan Brolick. Odongo began playing baseball just about 2.5 years ago. Coach Wood saying that they opened up a baseball academy in Uganda several years ago. There's efforts to grow the game around the world, and Africa seeming to be a place with untapped potential for the game of baseball. And so Odongo attended that academy, and he impressed enough to get an offer to come play in the United States. So he looks to be a trailblazer for Uganda and the entire continent of Africa.
Yeah, I think that's really, really awesome. Think about the fact that he's a kid that's just been playing this game for 2.5 years. A lot of these guys across both rosters have spent 10+ years playing this game their entire lives. It's the fact that he's pitching on this stage right now at this level against an opponent like Trinity for a program that's on the rise like St. Thomas. Incredibly, incredibly telling of the potential that he has on the mound.
It just goes to show that on every team, on every roster, in every sport, no matter where you look, there are phenomenal stories to be found. And we're so lucky to get to bring you some of them like the one we have today with Odongo. Everyone has a life journey, and his has found him from Uganda to Houston and now San Antonio on the mound with a 2-2 count. The base is loaded. Brolick connecting with this one. Fly ball to center field. Going deep almost to the warning track, but making the catch, and the second out of the inning is Fields, but the run does come across to score, so that run right back for the Tigers after the Celts got one in the top half, and a 9-1 lead for Trinity.
Yeah, and off the bat, that looked to be in on the hands of Brolick just a little bit, so surprised to see how deep that one traveled. Not very often that you see a ball batted to the outfield that allows the runner to tag over there at first base even. So an incredibly well-struck baseball from the bat of Nathan Brolick.
Now Brian Schaub will look to make this a double-digit lead with runners on second and third. Metz over there at third, Gore at second. And Pitkin will try to catch Metz over there, but The first baseman slides back in safely. And he looks confused as to why he was thrown at. Not going anywhere with an 8-run lead at third. So a 1-1 count to Schaub, the wind picking up, perhaps explaining that fly ball from Brolick that just kept carrying out to center. We'll see if Schaub can take advantage. He normally doesn't need much help. This one in the dirt. Pitkin slides over to block it. 2-1 the count now.
And a good spot for Schaub right here. Same count that he was in the game that we saw yesterday from Dongo on the mound. We've seen a lot of fastballs early on. We've seen that breaking ball a couple of times, but he's left it up in the zone. Good opportunity for Schaub right here to get a hold of one.
For Odongo, it's his 7th appearance of the year. He's thrown 8 innings and has that elevated ERA. But Coach Wood saying he has immense talent. He just has to find that consistency. But as we talked about, not even 3 years of playing the game of baseball, so you know it will come. Schaub gets this one in the air to left field. Field steps in to make the catch from center. And the out is retired. So the Tigers get one back to increase their lead to 9-1. Odongo does a nice job limiting the damage. And we head to the top of the 6th in San Antonio with the Tigers up by 8. Dylan Lamb up to the plate. Looks at a ball inside, has to get out of the way. Martinez still on the mound for the Tigers. The next out he gets, and it might come on this pop-up in the infield. You could hear Met saying, "I can't see it." And it ends up out of play, foul. So it will not be the out that gets him to 5 complete innings, but you expect him to get there. It's been 4 2/3 for Martinez so far. Just 2 hits allowed, an unearned run, and 4 strikeouts for the first year, who has done a great job filling in for the starter, Cade McGann.
Yeah, and we mentioned those 2 outings that he had early on in conference play that got dinged up just a little bit. Baseball found the barrel just a little bit too often, but I mentioned his last outing coming this past Tuesday against Our Lady of the Lake. The fact that through 1 inning, didn't allow any hits, struck out a batter. Clean outing for him this week, and he's continued it, carried forward here into this weekend series. And he's looked really strong here today.
Martinez tries to get an off-speed in there. Lamb makes contact, but it will be caught out there by the right fielder, Vonderhaar. And Lamb will head back to the dugout with 1 away in the 6th. I've gotten to talk to Martinez throughout this season. And one thing he told me, not a superstitious person necessarily, but he doesn't like other people to wear his glove.
I think that's a pretty common trait amongst baseball players. It wasn't typically a sentiment that I carried myself, but I think it's respectable.
I think it makes sense. It's a fair ask.
For sure. I mean, the glove gets formed to your hand when you're out there, but you're also pitching in such hot conditions, especially down here in Texas. So you don't want any of your teammates sticking their hot, sweaty hands in your glove in between innings. It's a rude awakening when you go out on the mound and you stick your hand in your glove, and it's gross in there. Certainly for Martinez, I'm rooting for him, rooting for his teammates not to disrupt him in any capacity.
And you know the saying, fits like a glove, to suggest that something is a good fit?
Mm-hmm.
Something that didn't fit like a glove was Martinez's hat. And
For such a long time.
For such a long time. And the inning comes to an end, but it's not going to stop us from talking about this because it's something that we're a little disappointed in. So we introduced a brand new hat counter. We were so proud of it. It was thought of on the fly by our control room. We had it up in his outing earlier this season. He had 16 times where his hat fell off.
It got us even more invested in the game, trying to figure out, predict how many times it was going to fall off.
And now his last 3 outings, Luke, no hats off. We haven't even shown the counter.
It's the curse of the broadcast. We create the counter, we say something on air, and the exact opposite happens.
I didn't think it would happen with something like that, though.
Neither would I. I think more typically it's the broadcaster's curse. It's something we have to say.
Jack told me he got a haircut. Maybe that explains it, but he said it might be coming back as his hair grows. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And maybe he'll be out for the 7th, and maybe the wind will pick up a little bit at the right time. Give us at least one to have something to cheer on.
A little bit of hope for the future as he continues to pitch well this season. Another great outing for him today. He's going to continue to pitch here in San Antonio. We'll see him again in a couple of weeks for that Texas Lutheran series, but that won't be the final home games of the season. We'll have plenty of opportunities to hopefully see Jack Martinez's hat fall off.
We'll have Tuesday against Mary Hardin Baylor, though after going as long as he has today, don't think he'll be there. Trinity then goes on the road against Shriners, so we won't get to see it against the Mountaineers, but that following Tuesday, April 19th, Concordia coming to town. The Tornadoes, maybe they'll blow in a wind. The hat will come off. And then the Bulldogs will come in for 3 games. So plenty of time. Jack, your hair can grow, your hat can fall. We're rooting for it. And somehow we talked through the entire break of the inning, and Jack Wisniewski at the plate.
Yeah, I think certainly impressive that we were able to kind of bridge the gap just with the hat fall off. I think hat off to you for that one, Brian.
Very clever wordplay there.
Another thing that I'm glad has returned to normalcy as we await the hats to fall off for Jack Martinez in the future. Jack Wisniewski stepping back into the batter's box without those batting gloves on. Something that I think had both of us a little unsettled last weekend when those made an appearance here in San Antonio, but I know that you got the explanation for that one.
Alarmed is the right word, I think. We were alarmed. And poor Jack almost gets hit for the 3rd time today. Maybe it's because he wore those gloves. They know that he went against his nature. But no, Jack telling me that it was because it was so humid against Dallas. You brought it up earlier. It was quite humid over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, against the Crusaders. So Wisniewski going against his standard, putting some batting gloves on, but they are back off. Back to the typical Jack Wisniewski, the super senior, not letting his fans down. And there is the hit by pitch.
And I need to tell you, I was about to say, narrowly avoided one earlier in that at bat. I was going to give him the opportunity to swing it. I didn't want to use that, I didn't want to say it. I don't want to put the announcer's curse into play, but it didn't matter that time.
You just have to feel for the guy.
Yeah, certainly.
Getting hit with a baseball is not fun. And he's been hit 3 times today. What is going on?
I think at the very least we can say that he's had a long career here in San Antonio. So for this to be happening in his 5th season in a Tiger uniform, not the worst case scenario. But you think back to earlier this season when a debut was being made in the first 3 at-bats, first 3 plate appearances of a career ended in hit by pitches. You feel a little bit more in that situation.
We certainly did have that. We've had some weird things going on all year in San Antonio as Pettit ropes a double down the right field line. Runners at the corners for the Tigers. That's Trey Verver you're referring to. Had not had a official at-bat recorded in his career because his first 3 times to the plate, he was hit by the pitch. And he's a first year. Now Wisniewski feels his pain as a super senior.
Yeah, in any situation, you really want these hitters to have the opportunity to swing the bat. Jack Vonderhaar will have exactly that right here after already leaving the yard once this game. It's something that we saw last week in a 3-run home run. One of the biggest secrets to success in baseball, I'm sure, in your opinion, Brian.
Definitely nothing better than pitching defense and 3-run home runs. Vonderhaar's had a couple of solo shots, so now gets to drive in some buddies if he gets one out of here. He's behind 0-1, going up against Odongo. Vonderhaar waits back on the breaking ball, sends it foul. A couple of innings ago when Montreza got hit and we said it's the 5th hit by pitch, I immediately thought that has to be the season high. But the Tigers have been hit by a pitch 5 times in a game now, 3 times. But it is now a season high with 6 hit by pitches for the Tigers. So we're breaking records out here in San Antonio.
Maybe not a record that these guys want to have broken. Certainly a lot of pitchers on the mound for St. Thomas who have thrown it well today. Think about those ones early on to Wisniewski that caught him on that front leg. Certainly something that you want to try and avoid as much as possible. Possibility for injury. That door's just slightly left open. Nothing, no malintention there for sure, but just kind of indicative of the day that the Celts have had on the mound. They've been consistent, but they've struggled to find the zone, unfortunately.
The 1-2 to Vonderhaar is pulled to right field. The catch is made out there, and the runner tagging from home as Lamb makes the catch, but well deep enough to score Wisniewski from third, so the 10th run now on the board for the Tigers. That one hung up there for a while, the wind dying down for just a moment, and Lamb getting it back into the infield to prevent the runner from going to second. But you said, Luke, not the record you want to break, but sometimes you don't choose the history you make. The history chooses you.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened here today, Brian.
Montreza lays off of one in the dirt to start off his at-bat. It's been a season full of history for St. Thomas as well, and for them some very positive milestones. So their sweep of Austin College earlier this season, their first sweep ever in SCAC history. And their sweep of Belhaven was their first sweep of a Division III opponent in their school history. Of course, it's their 3rd season as a baseball program after a 51-year hiatus, so most things they do will end up in their history books, but still, good accomplishments for them to put those first in the record books.
Absolutely. And We've already talked about the improvements that have been made in just year 2 as this program gets restarted. I mentioned it on the broadcast yesterday. You talk about their record in conference play, 5-5 right now. Waiting the results of this one. They finished conference last year with just 6 victories, so a lot of time to go. And a great opportunity to build in year 2, improve on that win total. As we've already talked about, make a push for that 4th spot. Try and get to that postseason tournament.
And we've talked a lot about the St. Thomas baseball program, of course. That's what we're broadcasting. And they are brand new. But the athletic program at St. Thomas is not as new as baseball, still relatively new, because after the 1985 season for their basketball team, the university shut down athletics, and they didn't return until the 2006 season. So 20 years without athletics at St. Thomas, but they're back. Now baseball is back. And we've seen the success that St. Thomas has had in the conference in other sports throughout the season. So their men's soccer team winning the SCAC tournament, their men's basketball team winning the SCAC tournament. They haven't been able to qualify for the NCAA tournament since this is year 3 of their transition from NAIA to Division III. But as soon as the fall of next year, they can officially qualify for postseason play. And so as a university, they're in a great spot to compete for years to come. Ball misses high to Montreza here, and I know Luke and I, we've gotten to see St. Thomas in some of those other sports. Their basketball team, quite the sight to see. They are spectacular on the hardwood.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of really great matchups between St. Thomas and Trinity's men's basketball team across the past 2 years, not even limited to just this season. Really competitive basketball that got played as Montreza drives that one to center field, that one getting down, allowing the runner to advance all the way over to third base.
That men's basketball team winning the SCAC tournament, but it was Trinity that got the trip to the NCAA tournament as they were the regular season champions. As you get a look at the replay, the runner was off with the pitch, Pettit on the 3-2. So Montreza with the single, and then he advances to second on the errant throw. MJ Metz will come to the plate, and a bigger opportunity than you might think at first glance with a 10-1 lead with the SCAC conference rules of if you're up by 10 after 7, you win. If MJ Metz can drive in at least 1 or 2 here to give the Tigers a double-digit lead, next half inning could be the end of this one. So something to keep an eye on as Metz is at the plate.
Yeah, a good scenario to do that in right here. Runners on second and third, so no force outs in the infield, just 1 out. Clearly no double play ball in effect right here. Metz saw him homer earlier on in this one. The most important thing from that at-bat seemed to really find his timing. The swings that we've seen since then have been really good. Not all of them have resulted in balls batted in play, but much better than his previous couple of at-bats. A remarkable turnaround after the night that we saw from him yesterday. 4 strikeouts in that one. Started the game off with another today, but has driven a couple of balls out to left field.
And he drives another one, and it splits the gap, gets to the wall. 2 runs are going to score easily as Metz stands up at second with a double. So the big day for MJ Metz continues. 5 runs batted in now for the senior from San Diego.
Yeah, and a really great swing from Metz right there. That one similar to the one that we saw leave the yard, just a little bit more in on his hands. Does a really nice job of just muscling that one into the gap. In that situation with runners on base, knows that he just has to put the baseball in play. He gets one down, it's likely scoring both of them, puts that one in the gap and allows him to continue this inning from second base.
The Tigers continue their run of scoring in every inning of this ball game. They've scored in all 6, and this is the second time that they've scored at least 3 in an inning. So the Bats definitely continue to be on a roll. Now, the 8th time in the last 9 games that the Tigers have scored double-digit runs. And it's a pretty important mark for the Tigers because when the Tigers score more than 10 runs, they are 12-0 on the year. Holloway crushes one the other way, but it's going to be caught by Fields out there. Metz has to get back to second. And so the right fielder, Lamb, that is, Fields over at center. Lamb in a good spot for the second time this inning. And it'll bring up Ezra Gore to the plate.
And just another really nice swing from Holloway right there. Tigers across the board swinging it really well today, doing a nice job of really hunting that middle third of the baseball. No surprise that they've been able to scratch across double-digit runs. Incredibly impressive statistic that they've been perfect on the year when they've met that one requirement. But when you pair that with their more recent performances on the mound, these shutouts, one-run game here against St. Thomas right now, have to imagine that it's setting up really, really nicely for an appearance this postseason.
Gore, aggressive swing at that one, fouls it back to take the count to 1-1. Trinity trying to improve to 19-7 on the year. And they look to be well on their way to doing that. This little check swing foul ball from Gore takes the count to 1-2. We talked about other teams' spot in the top 25. Maybe brushed aside the fact that Trinity themselves are ranked 21st in Division III. And you have to imagine they'll only keep rising as they keep piling up the victories. Texas Lutheran not quite in the top 25, but they are receiving votes. Babson also receiving votes, another team Trinity's faced this year. This one gets away from Pitkin, and Metz will take third. Another one in the dirt will be ball 4, so Gore will take a free pass on to first.
And Adongo on the mound right now, just overthrowing the baseball a tad. Seems as if he's lost that release point a little bit. A good spot for him to turn to that breaking ball. He does a nice job of dropping that one into the zone. Something that we saw in the last half inning for him right here. See if they have the opportunity to right the ship.
He will not, as he hands the ball off to Coach Wood, and he'll walk on back to the dugout, make way for a new Celt pitcher. So we'll take a break on Tiger Network and be back after this. Nathan Brolick with another opportunity to drive in some runs. He already has 3 RBI in game 1. And he faces a lefty on the mound, the new pitcher, Zach Brunner, who is making just his 2nd appearance of the season. Brunner, the junior from Katy, Texas, appeared against Our Lady of the Lake about a week and a half ago. He threw an inning and just gave up a hit, no runs. And a reminder that this is game 1 of a doubleheader, so we still have an entire game to follow. And St. Thomas trying their best to keep their arms fresh. And Brunner will help them out a little bit. A ground ball right back to him. He flips it on to first for the 3rd out. So the Tigers up 12-1 as we head to the 7th. If they can get 3 outs without allowing 2 runs, that'll be that. We'll see if they can do it after the break. Another Martinez-Martinez matchup here to start the 7th. Noah Martinez getting ahead 1-0. And now swinging at that one, sending it foul. 5 2/3 so far from Martinez. And if he's able to complete this inning, essentially, Luke, it's as if the Tigers have thrown 3 straight complete games.
Yeah, incredibly impressive to go the distance, having come in out of the bullpen. I think all the way back to that first inning. Came into the game with 1 out, but inherited a bases-loaded situation. But since then, he's limited this Celts lineup.
Schaub with a fantastic catch going up against the wall. Martinez giving it a ride, but the left fielder not afraid of the contact. The wall should be afraid of Schaub, if we're being quite honest.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. The way the wall rattles as he runs into it out there. Not something that we see often. He does a really nice job of just tracking that baseball all the way, making sure that he continues to move his feet.
We saw Ty Preston run into the left field wall earlier this year. So now Schaub joining him in those ranks. Brown grounding it to the right side. Metz steps on the bag himself, and there are 2 away here in the 7th. Jack Martinez coming in for Cade McGann, the starter of this game. McGann walked 3 St. Thomas hitters, only recorded an out. And so Coach Dave Smith came out to the mound, took the ball from McGann, and handed it to Martinez. And Martinez has not given it back to any other pitcher. Really doing a fantastic job helping the Tigers pull away in this one, giving them the opportunity to score the runs that they have, and perhaps more importantly, saving the bullpen, because we still do have that game 2 on the way. And let's get to game 2 in a little bit, almost the 3rd out of the 7th. But Martinez really helping the Tigers out, giving their bullpen the opportunity to be armed and ready to go for the final game of the series.
And that one, just the third hit of the afternoon for St. Thomas. Just a really well-placed baseball. Montreza doing a nice job ranging to his left.
Right here, the pinch hitter drives a 2-run home run out of here. And so much for that being the final out of the game, because we are now underneath the 10-run deficit. Garza coming in off the bench and hitting the home run. Eric Garza, his first at-bat of the series. And he keeps this game going for the Celts.
Now, Brian, I know one of your favorite phrases on all of our broadcasts is a game of inches. You think back to the previous play, a really close one over there at first base. Just inches away from this one being over, and things almost snowballing for the Tigers right there. Martinez struggling to field that one cleanly, but calms the nerves, gets that one over to first base on time to record the third out, but not before St. Thomas scratches a couple more runs here in the bottom of the seventh, taking that run rule off the board, but the Tigers will just need one.
Eric Garza, the junior from Houston, Texas, said, "We want to play more baseball." He drove a 2-run home run out of here in the top of the seventh. And so here we are in the bottom of the inning. The Tigers up 9, and Brian Schaub at the plate, 0 for 1, but he's come around to score with 2 walks on the day. He looks at a ball outside. The rare opportunity for the walk-off home run with a 10-run lead. We'll see if he or the Tigers behind him could pull something off. He gets ahead in the count 2-0.
Good conditions for him to do so here in this at-bat with Brunner on the mound. A little bit of a more unorthodox delivery. That throwing arm dropping down just a little bit.
Brolick hit last inning. Schaub gets a single into left. It's just because Brolick has had so many base hits that I assumed it was him, but it's Brian Schaub at the plate.
Yeah, when hard hit balls stay in the infield, or stay in the ballpark, I should say. Typically looking to Nathan Brolick after the last couple of days that he's had, but a good start to the bottom of the seventh here for Trinity. That baseball finding the barrel. We talked a little bit about Brunner, the fact that an arm dropping down, coming out from the side and really traveling over the heart of the plate. Ideal approach for a hitter like Schaub, who has the tendency to leave the yard, but stayed on top of that last pitch a little bit and was able to find the hole in the left side.
Nice off-speed delivery from Brunner, who came in and did get Nathan Brolick out, the only hitter he faced in the 6th inning. Now the single allowed to Schaub and a 0-2 count to Wisniewski. Wisniewski grounds it to short. On to second and on to first for the double play. Brown to Martinez to Galvan. And the leadoff runner erased by the twin killing.
Yeah, and a good job up the middle between Brown and Martinez. Looked like that one was bobbled just a little bit, but a good job, nice presence of mind to ensure that they got the out right there at second base. And despite any troubles that they might have had, able to get that one on over to first.
Pettit now at the plate with no one on and 2 outs. We were an out away from a run rule in the top half of the 7th before Eric Garza hammered a 2-run shot to left to keep the game alive. And Pettit trying to end the game right there, but he'll hook it foul. This is the final doubleheader that we will have at home on Tiger Network because the remaining games we have are midweek games that are just on Tuesday night, and then the TLU series will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so no doubleheader. Pettit skies this one the other way, but in comes Fields with plenty of room, and Brunner with a clean bottom half of the 7th. So we'll head to the 8th on Tiger Network. Tigers up 12-3. For the first time since the first inning, a new pitcher on the mound for Trinity. Jack Martinez, who came in to replace Cade McGann, now replaced himself by a fellow first-year, Luke Pfeiffer. And Pfeiffer's first pitch to Jacob Carrier, low for a ball. Luke Pfeiffer, the first year from Valencia, California, making his 4th appearance of the season. He gets a strike there on the inside part of a plate. Carrier taking some time before pitches, but Pfeiffer ready to go right away, and he gets a foul ball on that one. Last time we saw Pfeiffer, not that long ago, he had an inning of work without allowing a hit, or allowed 1 hit, not allowing a run against Dallas last weekend. So now looking to follow things up and continue that success. Good to see some first years getting action here today, Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. And he looks really good off the bat in this first at-bat. Outside of that first pitch that he spiked in the dirt, did a nice job to come right back and get ahead in the count 1-2. A couple of pitch out of the zone right there. But set himself up in really, really nice position and threw a really great curveball right there. The previous one got left up in the zone just a little bit, but that one a little bit more like what we're used to. Just drops that one in the middle of the strike zone. Forces Carrier to pick up the bat and swing it, but something that this St. Thomas lineup has struggled to do over the course of the past 2 games is put that breaking ball into play when they haven't been able to hit it hard. It's resulted in a lot of ground balls that have stayed in the infield, a lot of pretty routine fly balls for our outfielders.
Lamb bounces this one to second. Holloway has to make a quick throw to get the speedy Lamb, and he will not make the accurate throw. You see how quickly Lamb gets down the line, putting a lot of pressure on any infielder, and Holloway with a throw that is high. And so Lamb will be safe at first.
Yeah, a good decision from Holloway to charge that baseball, understanding the speed of Lamb in the infield, or on the base paths, excuse me. But unfortunately for the Trinity second baseman, charging it put him in a worse position to make that throw on over to first base. So just an unfortunate placement right there. That one went the way of Lamb, but Pfeiffer still throwing really, really well.
Lamb taking off for second, and he is safe over there. So Lamb keeps his perfect season intact on the base paths, now 15 for 15 on stolen base attempts. His first of this series, though, and the first stolen base of the series for St. Thomas as well. Yesterday they had no stolen bases, and it's just the 3rd time this year that the Celts have gone without swiping a bag. Something that is very rare for this team that loves to run around the bases.
You know, in that last one, it looked like Tyler Pettit got a good throw down to second base. The defenders in the infield just a little bit late covering. It was a close play, but you mentioned Lamb able to take that bag safely. And again, we see Pfeiffer just overthrowing the baseball a little bit in that last delivery, spiking another fastball. Not much that Pettit could do on it. That backstop behind home plate, that brick wall, typically creating a big rebound. It looked like that one bounced up and got one of those poles in which that wire fencing is hung. Lamb over at third base now for the Celts.
Pfeiffer repeatedly going to the breaking ball, and he goes to it again and gets Galvan looking. The curveball falling from the sky and into the strike zone. Pfeiffer with a nice outing so far, 2 strikeouts already out of the bullpen, and he'll try to get out of this inning scoreless by getting past Lance Kahn. Pettit, nice job sliding over, keeping Lamb over there at third.
And a really nice job from Pettit right there on another spiked fastball. Pretty routine to deal with when they're between the knees, but a couple times in this inning, Pettit has been forced to try and get around it. Something that's difficult to do when you're throwing that pitch with as much velocity as the Tigers in this rotation have. So the first couple of times that fastball was spiked, Pettit just stabbing at it with his glove, but does everything that he can to get his body in front of it on that last one. Does a nice job. Pfeiffer returns, sitting in contention in this at-bat right now at 2-1 count.
Another big breaking ball and another swing and a miss from Kahn. Impressive movement on the curveball from Pfeiffer, and we'll see if he continues to trust it on the 2-2. Pettit setting up high. Pfeiffer not quite getting it where he wanted. Still a close pitch, though, at the bottom of the zone. Just a little bit low, though, says the home plate umpire, so we'll do the 3-2 pitch now. Pfeiffer goes back to the breaking ball and gets strike 3 swinging. Luke Pfeiffer strikes out the side with an impressive curveball to showcase here in the 8th. Tigers looking to wrap things up in the bottom half of the inning with a 9-run lead at the moment. Lefty on lefty matchup here between Brunner and Vonderhaar, and it begins with a strike. Brunner has done a nice job since coming in from the bullpen. He's gone an inning and a third, allowed just 1 hit, and has kept the Tigers off the board. The 7th inning, the first time that Trinity does not score in this one, and Brunner hops off the mound. Takes a little longer to get the ball over to first, but he does get Vonderhaar out to start the 8th.
Yeah, an especially difficult task for Vonderhaar at the plate in that at-bat against a pitcher like Brunner. We talked about it last inning, and how it's a clear advantage for someone like Brian Schaub, but makes the job even more difficult on the left-handed hitters. But now for Trinity, a couple of right-handers in a row in Montreza, Metz, Holloway, and Gore. It's the next 4 hitters for the Tigers standing in from that right side, trying to scratch one more run and end things a little bit early here.
Montreza grounds it to second. A bobble over there by Martinez, and it'll be enough to allow Montreza to reach. So just a moment of struggle by the second baseman allows Montreza to take first base.
And a good job by Montreza right there, not getting frustrated out of the batter's box, instead putting his head down and booking it down to first base. I think that's something that we've seen out of the Tigers all season long, especially on those balls batted in the infield. Pay dividends when there's mistakes made, fielding error likely going the way of Martinez on that one right there. But even when they're not, even when they're fielded cleanly, really putting the pressure on the defense.
Putting pressure on the defense is Metz here. Down the line goes the double. Yet another 2-bagger for MJ Metz. Montreza scurries over to third. And the winning run 90 feet away for Christian Holloway.
And Metz just continuing a magnificent day at the plate. Moves to 4 for 5. Think back to that home run, has 5 RBIs on the afternoon. Incredible turnaround yet again. I mentioned the performance that he had last night is one that I'm sure he wanted to forget, and forget quickly he will. going to be a performance and a day at the plate that he's going to look to emulate going forward in conference play.
And you know, Luke, it's worth calling out because he joins the broadcast sometimes. Josh Mochigemba, the man in charge of Tiger Network who allows us to do these wonderful things, said that he was wondering why Metz was in the leadoff spot. As Holloway pops this one up to first, he'll be retired. But Josh was wondering why he was at the leadoff spot, moving up from the cleanup spot, especially after that performance yesterday. And I said, you know, he's going to go 4 for 4 to prove to you that it is the right decision. And it's not 4 for 4, but it's 4 for 5 with a home run and 5 runs batted in. So, Josh, I told you so. Coach Scannell knows what he's doing out there.
I think the key to your success on that one, Brian, is the fact that you didn't say things on air. I think that helped us out big time here, avoided the announcer's curse. I think that's something that we're going to have to do moving forward. Make sure that we have our predictions come before the game, especially when they're favorable for our guys out there on the field and lead to performances like him today going 4 for 5.
Sometimes you just know it in your heart. So, Metz proving me right here, and the wild pitch with Brolick at the plate will bring home Montreza, and a walk-off wild pitch for the Tigers will do it for Game 1. Ezra Gore had been intentionally walked to bring the lefty-on-lefty matchup, but Brunner throwing the wild pitch to Brolick, and Montreza marks run number 13 for the Tigers. An offensive onslaught for Trinity results in a Game 1 victory, and you look up and down this Trinity lineup, lots to be happy with, but it all starts with the leadoff hitter, and it all starts with MJ Metz, 4 for 5 with 5 runs batted in. An incredible performance today, Luke.
Yeah, and couldn't be happier than the performance that he had today. 4 for 5, hit for contact, hit for power, driving one out of here. Something that you don't see a whole lot out of the leadoff hitters, 5 RBI on the day as well. Something that we saw in the game yesterday was the efficiency from this offense. It carries forward to this one as well. 13 runs on just the 12 hits this afternoon. So really great situational hitting. Tigers doing a fantastic job of making sure that runners reach base safely in a multitude of different ways, not just relying on the bats to come alive. Being patient in the batter's box, and when that's the case, getting runners on base via walk, making sure that hitters have the right approach. And over their last now 9 games, that's exactly what has happened.
The 13 runs, a big plus, but a big performance on the mound from Jack Martinez, who came in to save the day in the first inning, and he nearly went the distance out of the bullpen. But then Luke Pfeiffer, a fellow first year, doing a nice job to close things out. We had so much fun yesterday, and we had so much fun today that we are not quite ready to call it a weekend. We have another game for you right here on Tiger Network. First pitch at 5:30. Once again, first pitch 5:30, so we will see you 35 minutes from now for Game 2 of this doubleheader.